Good morning. It's good to see all of you here this morning, celebrating our Divine Liturgy, beginning the very first day of the week here in church. And I had someone tell me the other day, a couple Sundays ago, they said, Father Nick, I was so glad that I came to church on Sunday. And I thought to myself, well, where else would you be on Sunday morning? This is where you need to be. And so all of you, thank you for being here. We're grateful that you're here and you're worshiping with us. And really, more importantly, you're honoring God by simply being in the house of God. So thank you all for being here. And to those that are watching our services online, as we say this every single Sunday, you're part of our family. Whether or not you're physically here, you're part of our virtual family. So thanks so much for taking the time to worship with us this morning as well. And if you happen to be visiting St. John the Divine this Sunday, this is your very first Sunday here, I couldn't tell you that you came to hang around with some of the best people, I believe, in this city of Jacksonville. A little bit of a pompous statement, but I really believe that about how great you all are. But if you are new, you should definitely introduce yourselves to myself, to our welcoming team as you're exiting the church this morning. We'll tell you all about the ministries of what we do here at St. John the Divine. You should all know what St. John the Divine is all about, and so I hope to encourage you that if you are new, definitely take advantage of that. So let's get started. Several weeks ago, we began a sermon series entitled Living Intentionally. And over the last several weeks, you've had different speakers and homilists come out and give you a message. And today I want to kind of tie up the entire sermon series to finish this sermon series with hopefully some words that will uplift all of us to live intentionally. And today I want to talk to you, though, about one of the core principles if you want to live an intentional life. And that is this: setting the right priorities. Friends, all of us are being pushed and pulled in a million different directions. Very few of us, if I was to ask you, do you feel busy this week, would not raise their hand. You're all accomplishing a lot. And it's good to be goal-oriented. It's good to have ideas that you want to accomplish. Those are all great things to happen. But you need to tune in real quick now, because we're living in a world that's constantly telling us that busy is better, that more is the best. And for many of us, we are tired. And what we don't realize is that we are in a spiritual battle. It's not with the man with the pitchfork and a red costume. It's the busyness that we are in. It's the priorities that the world is telling us to focus in on. And it's impacting us spiritually. It's impacting us relationally. It's impacting us psychologically. Corrie ten Boom was a Christian woman who helped hundreds and hundreds of Jewish people escape the Nazis during World War II. She became an extraordinary evangelist, someone who talked about Christianity over and over again. She puts it like this. She said, if the devil cannot get you to sin on the big things of life, then he will simply default in keeping you busy with the minutia of life. And how many of us are simply just so busy with so many priorities instead of the right priorities? So today I want to encourage you with this principle. If you don't set the right priorities over your life, the devil will set the wrong priorities to control your life. If you don't set the right ones, he'll set for you the wrong ones. If you don't set the right priorities, someone else will. When you look at the life of Christ, no one modeled how to deal with busyness better than him. Like if you were to look at Jesus Christ's to-do list for the week, at the very top it would have said, save the world. I don't know where your to-do list is compared to that to-do list, but never once in the Bible, from the book of Genesis to the final book in the book of Revelation, do you ever hear Christ say, you know what, can't make it to church because I had a meeting on Thursday, took longer than I anticipated. Can't go and help that other person who needs help because I got busy on this day. He constantly showed us that you have to have the right priorities. One time someone was asking him, what did you come down here for? He says, I came down from heaven not to fulfill my will, but the will of the Father who sent me. In other words, what he was saying is, there's going to be a lot of wills out there today. The will of the world. You need to make money. Keep making money. Put it in your 401k. Accrue. You're going to have wills of what the world tells you to do. Your friends were going to tell you to do. There's a lot of wills out there. He says, but no, don't be mistaken. I'm not going to be confused. I didn't come for the will of the world. I came to fulfill the will of the Father who sent me. And how many of us, when we stand before Christ, can say, you know what? I followed his will. But he gets it. He knows that you and I will struggle with it. So I want you to open up to the Bible verse for this week. It's on page 16 in your yellow Bibles. It's taken from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11. This is what we call the red letters in the Bible. The red letters are what Jesus speaks about. So it's the yellow Bible in your pews if you want to, or I'll just read it for you. For those of you that are tuning in online, we're in chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. Listen to what he says. See if he's speaking to you today. Come to me, all of you who are tired. Come all to me, those of you that feel like you're carrying a lot of loads. And I alone will give you rest. Listen to that. He's not telling you that some other person or some other book. I will give you rest. Not money, not other priorities, not other wills. Only I can give you rest. So he challenges you. He says, hey, St. John the Divine, can you take my yoke? And you all know this, we've talked about this a lot in sermons, but yoke was an instrument that they used to tie 2 oxen or 2 cows when they were plowing a field. And they would use this instrument to make sure that they would go, that whatever the oxen were connected to, this piece of yoke would make sure that they would go into a straight direction. And for some of us, we are yoked not to God, but to other areas that are occupying our life. Just think about it internally. Are you yoked to worry? Yoked to wealth? Yoked to other priorities? He's saying, be careful, take my yoke, stay connected to me, and I will give you rest. Learn from me, because I am gentle and humble. In other words, this world's going to keep having you on the rat race of life, but I'm humble and I'm gentle for you. You need me, take my yoke. For the yoke I will give you is easy, and the load that I'm going to give you is light. Compare your to-do list to that of Christ. Save the world and how he handled it compared to all of us. So I'm doing something very different today. I'm going to play on words to kind of like inspire you all. And so let me give you 3 principles that I want you to live with that are all about setting the right priorities for your life. And you can write these down if you want to go to heaven. I mean, you can write these things down if you want to, or not, you can tune in afterwards and write them down. Here's number 1. Choose mission over position. Choose mission over position. We live in a world that loves titles. Like we're all about the title, the label that we have, where we are, what kind of influence we have, how many followers on social media do I have, how many people are listening and following me. We focus a great deal on position. And can I just tell you that if you keep focusing on position, then God's mission cannot be fulfilled. Let me say it very simply in this way. If position is your priority, then God's mission is going to be a casualty. That is a great line. You don't need to acknowledge it. I'm just going to tell you it's a great line. Listen to it again. If your position is your priority, then God's mission it's going to be a casualty. His mission for our life will be a casualty. I'm going to be open and honest with all of you. For 8 years, I worked here as the youth director of this parish. And I loved it, enjoyed it. But this was not the very first parish that I was offered to go be a priest at. There were countless parishes, to be quite honest with you, and I said it in a very humble way. But I oftentimes fought it, time and time again. Why? Because Nick Louh was focused on the position of not having to worry about anything, not trying to be at parish council meetings and all trying to be worried about all the stress that can come along with the parish. That was my thinking, a warped thinking, but back then I was all about my position of just simply being in and out. And it wasn't until, and Roxanne will tell you this, that when we prayed on our knees 15 years ago in our little master bedroom before our icons and said, Lord, what is your job? What is your ministry for us? And we felt this in an extraordinary way. And I would tell you that some of you may not even, it may not have ever happened to you, but we felt like someone was bathing us with peace. And we knew that, hey, Louh's, it's stop focusing on position and start getting into the mission. And I'm just encouraging you all, don't allow position to speak louder than God's mission in your life. I love it how in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6, he says what we have on every one of our bracelets that we have out there, and I encourage every one of you to wear these. He says, seek God first. Seek him first. And all those other positions will come. And for many of us, we have it all turned around. We're all about seeking my position first, and then I'll take care of God's mission. No, seek God first. Here's number 2. If the priority is to choose mission over position, then number 2 would be choose motivation over expectation. Many of us, when we do things for people, we do it conditionally. It's not sacrificial. In other words, you do this for me, I'll do that for you. You don't show me respect, I'm not going to show you respect. You don't love me, I'm not loving you. And instead of any things being sacrificial, they are transactional. And what you need to know is that one of the greatest areas of our life that we lose track is when we live a life that's based upon expectations. In fact, most problems in relationships happen when you expect someone to do something and they just don't do it. One time the Pharisees were asking Jesus, what's the commandment that we should all follow? They're testing him. And Jesus looks over at them and he says, y'all know it. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And they're like, yeah, we've heard that. And then he goes, but wait a second. Here's a second one. And love others like I've loved you. Love others like I have loved you. And can I just tell you that some of the marriages in this church right now have been focused too much on expectation instead of motivation. Some of the way that we're treating our children is based upon expectation instead of motivation. Let me go a little bit, digress. I think there's 2 types of Christians. The Faucet Christian and the sink Christian. The sink Christian is someone that just wants everyone to pour into them. Just keep pouring it all into me. I'll accept all this blessings in my life. You guys know people that are like that. Maybe you are one of those people. But you just want everything to be done for you. But the Faucet Christian is saying, you know what? I'm going to pour into everyone no matter what happens. I'm going to pour into this church. I'm going to pour into the ministries of this community. I'm going to pour into my wife, pour into my husband. Let me ask you, are you a faucet or are you the sink? And here's number 3. We choose mission over position, motivation over expectation, and finally, you choose legacy over temporary. I love IKEA. IKEA furniture, some of you may be familiar with IKEA. Half of our house is IKEA furniture, and we love IKEA furniture. But if you were to ask me, Father Nick, are you going to give your great-grandkids, are you going to give them the IKEA furniture that you have right now for them in several generations? I would say absolutely not. Because IKEA furniture is temporary. Like we just bought it and it's already showing some signs of wear and tear. Like it's not going to be around in 2 or 3 generations. But for some of us, that's how we approach life. We're buying the IKEA of today. We're simply just trying to find the things that give us some satisfaction today. And can I just tell you that at the end of the day, we want to stand before God, not giving the temporary, but leaving a legacy. When I think about myself as a priest, I wonder how the Goya or the teen group of this church is going to be in 50 years. I won't be here, but what is it going to look like? Or how about our choir? How about all of you as a parish? What is it going to look like? And for some of us, I want us to go and know in our hearts that I don't want the generation 50 years from now to say, wow, I wish that this generation would have done things that they had power to do. And the same thing is in your life. I don't want George's grandchildren, my son, to be doing things at that generation that I could have done for them now. So I'm encouraging you all, focus on the legacy, not the IKEA temporary. I leave you with this. I'm going to call up some of my friends, my colleagues here. Nico, John, and George. I'm going to use an illustration here for all of you, okay? In the Bible, in the book of Exodus, it's an amazing book, by the way. In the book of Exodus, there's these people that are named Joshua, Moses, Aaron, and Hur. One time, the Amalekites are people who were attacking the people of Israel. They were attacking them so great that Joshua was fighting them. Joshua, being a good guy, was fighting these Amalekites. And they would win, and they were beating, but then sometimes Joshua would win. And so God tells Moses, who goes up to a hill, and he says, Moses, lift your hands up in the air. And when you lift your hands up in the air, George, can you illustrate? Thank you so much, George, for doing that. We practiced that all week this week. That when you lift your hands up in the air, Joshua will be able to beat and win the battle against the Amalekites. But as Moses would hold his hands, sometimes they would get tired and they would fall. And then when Moses would get some strength, he'd lift his hands up again, and then they would win a little bit more. So what does God do? He says to Moses, go get these 2 men, Aaron and Hur, to hold up your arms. Now, this is in the middle of the summer, by the way, so you imagine that it was quite zesty. It was hot out there, obviously, and people were sweating, but you're holding someone from their armpits. But that's a whole other story that we will just, to give you an idea, an illustration of just how these people were working. And so Aaron and Hur are holding up Moses' hands, and ultimately Joshua defeats the enemy of the Amalekites. Why? Because Moses had the people that were holding him up. Can I tell you, this is what your church wants to do for you. You see, God has a dream for you. He wants you to fight for your marriage. He wants you to fight for this church. He wants you to fight for the values of this world. And you can't do it alone. You need the church to be holding your hands up, to be lifting you up and guiding you. And so I'm encouraging all of you to ask yourself, do I have my priorities straight? Because if not, you're going to get tired and you're going to ultimately lose the battle. Thanks so much, guys. So go out today, and I encourage all of you to go out, choose mission over the position. Husbands, choose the mission you're called to be in your marriage over what the position of this world says for you to be. Choose mission over position. Number 2, make sure that you choose motivation over expectation. Are you a sink or are you the faucet? And number 3, choose legacy over the temporary. Stop investing in IKEA. It's good now, it's not good in the future. Because if you don't set the right priorities in your life, the enemy will set the wrong priorities over your life. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.